What animals is this enclosure for? Find out in this video what new special friends we have introduced to our swarm. Hello everyone and welcome back to Spooderpods. I am Dave and today is a very exciting and special video. We have welcomed some entirely different animals to our swarm, flock, whatever you want to call it, and I'm very excited in this video to introduce them to you, share about how we did their enclosure setup, and also share what stuff we chose to set them up with. It was a bit of a spur of the moment decision in some ways, but not in others. We've been thinking about getting these little guys for ages or something like this. But yeah, I'm not going to tease you too much. I'm going to get straight into it and talk about what we picked up. So I've been keen on reptiles for quite some time. Me and Sophie have never kept them together. We have some experience with them. But I wanted a reptile, and originally I wanted to get a leopard gecko. However, we did a lot of research and we found, because of our limitations on space, we wouldn't be able to give them the appropriate size enclosure. We could give them the minimum, but that wouldn't be enough really for us. We always want to go a bit further and do the best we possibly can for our animals. So instead, we went to a place called Millennium Reptiles in Sawbridgeworth, which is in Essex actually, not Hertfordshire I don't think, and we had a look at what they had and we fell in love with viper geckos. Now the Hemidactylus imbricatus, I hope I pronounced that correctly, viper gecko, or commonly known as the carrot-tail gecko, is a much smaller type of gecko than a leopard gecko, and they're commonly found in Iran and Pakistan, and they have some beautiful characteristics and features. They're also quite active and enjoy a more arid environment, and we wanted an arid environment because we can't have any more humidity here, so we wanted the kind of gecko that would enjoy a more arid sort of place to live. Why are they called viper geckos? Viper geckos, I think, due to their head shape. Their head shape is very much like a snake, and also when threatened they do this kind of undulation, posturing behaviour, which a lot of people liken to snakes. The carrot tail thing is kind of what they look like, you know, they do look like kind of a carrot, although the colour is a bit wrong. And what we loved about these is they are quite active. They're active at sort of dawn and dusk, at crepuscular, and they enjoy a more arid environment, which I talked about already, and they do like climbing and they're quite engaging. Plus you can keep a lot of them in a sort of relatively smaller size enclosure because they are a bit smaller. I'd say they're probably about 1/3 the size of a full-grown leopard gecko. We picked up 3 of these little friends and we decided to name them Peter, Egon and Ray. We wanted to have a 4th, but we didn't feel like we could fit it in that enclosure, and if you've kind of guessed on that theme, it is from Ghostbusters. We wanted a Winston as well, maybe in the future, or for a different type of lizard. And they're 7 months old, they are almost fully grown, and these guys can live to 10 to 15 years, which also appealed to us. We want them to be long lived, we want them to be with us for a long time, to be able to enjoy them and give them the best environment possible. Yeah, it was very exciting picking them up, a bit nerve-wracking because, as I said, it's a very new experience to us. But yeah, so I want to talk about them a little bit more, their individuals. I'm going to talk about how we set them up now and talk about their enclosure and some of the requirements that we had to consider for them. Right now, I just want to say a huge thanks to Arcadia. They do loads of reptile lighting, heating equipment, all sorts of bits and pieces. I'll talk a bit about them more throughout this video, but a big thank you to Arcadia because they were incredibly generous for sending a lot of bits, a lot more than I expected, to help us with our gecko setup. We've worked with them a lot when it comes to parrot stuff, and now we get to experience that same sort of high level quality with our reptiles too. We did lots of research on these guys. We asked lots of questions when we were actually at the shop. We talked a lot to people online, other people we know, other keepers, because we do have associations with lots of zoos. And we also watched loads of videos and made comments just to get as much information as possible. And I'm glad we did, because there's a lot of things you have to consider when setting up a reptile enclosure. A lot more, I think, than with an invert enclosure. Maybe about the same as a parrot enclosure. But we decided to go for a 45 centimetre cube for our 3, which would give them plenty of space to roam, plenty of space to climb, and lots of space for us to put various items in there. And we ordered this well in advance. I'm not going to talk about where we ordered them from because it was a disappointment. It did arrive eventually, thankfully, just in time. But the 45 cube is nice. It came with like a backing as well, which was already installed, and the quality of the product is quite nice. You may see it on the front. Again, I wasn't the happiest with the company, but I don't want to dwell on that. The actual product itself was completely fine. Then we used some of the substrate that Arcadia sent us, which is an arid soil substrate. We were thinking of sand, but honestly, after talking to Arcadia, I'd much prefer to have the arid soil. It's much better. And then just let things settle. Added some springtails and let things settle to see how things would work. just because I think it's good to dry run where an enclosure is going to be, how heavy it's going to be, and what it's going to look like, and just generally to see if there's any problems before you start putting other stuff in it. And at this point, Arcadia really shone for us. So they sent us a LED lamp, which is very, very useful for adding a bit of extra light in there and also to help plant growth. They sent us a heat bulb and reflector clamp, and they also sent us a UV lamp. And we have trusted Arcadia for quite some time because we've talked to them a lot about parrot UV, and obviously reptiles do need it. A lot of people say they don't, but honestly, given what I've read and given our experiences of parrots, a UV light is essential. So we got a nice little shade dweller from Arcadia, we got the reflector clamp as well, and we got the LED bar, which is going to be especially useful for having plants, because we were really keen on having live plants in there and making it at least a little bit bioactive. It is going to be fairly arid, but at least around those plants there will be moisture where the springtails can congregate, do some clean up, and the rest of it can be more arid as an environment. It creates, I think, a more natural environment for our geckos for them to enjoy and experience. But I just felt like the LED was very important for extra illumination. The UV was essential, honestly, and having the heat lamp, again, you need to have a decent heat lamp and reflector for your some inverts, for your inverts or reptile. Now again, what we did is we trial run these products as well, because nothing wrong with the products, but we wanted to know how they'd fit on our enclosure, and that's where we hit our first snag. LED bar sits on there perfectly, the UV lamp sits on there perfectly, but the enclosure we got wasn't really suitable for the clamp. So when we went to Millennium Reptiles, we bought like a stick-on holder for the heating lamp, so we could allow a bit more distance from the enclosure and have it securely affixed, just in case anything happens, it gets knocked or anything. It's nice and secure and it's safe there, and we're glad we did, because it looks much neater, not nicer. It does look nicer as well, I guess. It looks a lot neater, and I felt it's just a bit safer for us, for the reptiles, and to prevent any possible damage to the enclosure. Once we dry run our basic setup, we started populating the enclosure. We went and made sure we had a humid hide in there for them, which is basically a hide with sphagnum moss in there, so they can go in there and have a nice, cool, humid environment. Helps them shed. It's makes much more comforting for them. We put our decor in there. There's some clips going to be showing now about how we sort of did that bit by bit. We trial ran various items. We made sure we had a slightly higher spot for them to go if they want to get a bit more heat. Lower spots, places for them to hide and escape the heat. Places they can just go to have a bit more privacy. And then Sophie didn't really want this, but I insisted upon having a little gimmicky temperature and hydrometer sensor to go in the top left-hand corner of the cage. It glows in the dark as well, which is why I'm a big child, but I had to have that in there. And then basically populated it to give them lots of options and lots of enrichment. And then we added live plants. We made sure we added a type of jade live plant, and we added another, which I will talk about in a future video because I can't remember what it was called. They're kind of succulents, so they can thrive in arid environments, just again to add a bit of bioactivity with springtails around them. And just, yeah, I think it's just nice having live plants. I'm leaning towards it more and more with my inverts, so I thought these reptiles deserve that too. We then added some fake plants, and we also had their water and food bowls. With their water bowl, I made sure there's like a step so they can get in and out easily, and with their food bowl, it's a nice simple one which live food will struggle to escape from. We went a bit keen with our initial dusting. We thought we'd put a snack in there right away for them, just some dusted mealworms with an Arcadia supplement as well, because you must supplement reptiles. They're not going to get everything they need from just insects. There's loads of powders available. Obviously recommend Arcadia because we've basically not been disappointed with the company's products so far. And then it was time for the introduction. This was the scariest bit. So we got everything set up, we double tested everything, made sure everything was secure, made sure the heating was working, made sure everything, we got a thermostat as well for that, I forgot to mention, because obviously you want to make sure it's regulated, and it wasn't a pulse one in case anyone's thinking, so I know how annoying they can be with those sorts of lamps. We got a nice dimmer one, which is much better. But anyway, once that was all set up, it was go time, and we wanted to get Peter, Egon and Ray in there. Now Peter, given his name, was actually quite spicy. It was quite funny. Peter wasn't shy at all. Went onto Sophie's hand, didn't want to let go, but once in, straight away, just exploring everywhere. Egon was more shy. Went in there, straight into the humid hide. I'm not sure if he's actually come out yet. And then Ray was somewhere in the middle, just basically sat on top of the humid hide, then exploring. Then Peter and Ray decided to start climbing the walls. Luckily no fighting because they're all males, and apparently that's completely fine as long as you don't have any females involved. But no fighting so far, no naughtiness. again, part of our research there, and yeah, they've settled in quite well. I haven't seen one of them eat yet, but I am pleased to say they are being fairly active and they are exploring, with the exception of probably Egon, who's probably just going to sit in the humid hide because he was a bit shy on the way there as well. So we'll keep an eye on all of them, make sure they're all doing very well. What I do love about these guys is just their appearance. They're a little bit smaller, so you can obviously get away with a 45 cube, but we've given them plenty of enrichment and space. They have all the personality of larger reptiles. They are handleable apparently, although we've only done that to a limited degree to avoid stressing them, and they just seem beautiful, honestly. I'm just very pleased. I'm very pleased with Millennium Reptile service. If you are in the area, do check them out. And again, I'd like to give a huge thank you to Arcadia for helping us out with this and giving us some advice on what we wanted there. I will talk a bit more about UV for reptiles in the future because it is a topic I know about, and also the benefits of an LED bar, etc. But just for this video, thank you Arcadia, much appreciated, and thank you Millennium Reptiles for your good service. There will be future videos all about these little guys, lots more footage. I will do a guide on them because I know there aren't as many as one would expect on them, and also they are slightly less popular, although I'm not sure why because it's absolutely adorable. Loads of videos about them, and there is a tiny bit more space where I may be able to get a couple of very other small reptiles, but we'll stay tuned for that and we'll see what happens because there's lots going on in the bird side of our world. And anyway, but thank you very much for watching. Thank you all of you who do support the channel, who buy from my shop, or patrons or channel members. It's much appreciated. Again, thank you Arcadia and Millennium, and also just thank you for watching, much appreciated. If you want to leave any comments or ask questions, happy to hear from you, but in the meantime, take care and see you later.